Hey listeners, welcome to the Pepperdynamics podcast, the unofficial podcast about Pepperdine's Grazie a Dio Business School. Get informed and stay connected with students, faculty, and alumni from the Grazie a Dio Business School. I'm your host, Kia Jun.
And this is Ty Brown. Kia, who do we have on today? I think you were pretty excited about recording this episode.
Yeah, he's my former professor, Kenneth Murphy. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he's a professor and PhD candidate in the field of global leadership and change here at Pepperdine. He's been an executive consultant for nearly 30 years, focusing on organization, talent, and leadership development. It was a joy to have you during my first semester. How are you doing, Professor Murphy?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be with you guys today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on as my first professor on the podcast. And you taught me you taught our class some very practical skills like building optimal profiles for LinkedIn and Indeed, writing standout resumes and cover letters, and interviewing and negotiating more effectively. So there was like a limited scope that class had. It was really practical. But are there more like harder to teach skills, anything additional that you felt we should know but just didn't get around to doing?
Well, in the realm of career development, which is my specialty at Pepperdine, as well as the leadership consulting world that I come from, some of the tougher things you might say to teach or to instill are things like motivation, self-reflection, self-awareness, helping people develop their style and being aware of their style. So a lot of that is what I call a mindset and things of that nature. You know, we all have our personalities and traits. But there's so many things we can cultivate and sharpen in terms of how we use those at work or in our everyday life.
Definitely. And, you touched on mindfulness a lot. And this is almost like coaching, isn't it? It's like, the coaching aspect would be the part that, you can't do with like a class of 14, 15 people.
Yeah, the development of people, which is, of course, what the academic world is about. It's, certainly specialized around certain academic subjects, but the development of a whole person has so many facets to it. And so, mindset and thoughtfulness and awareness and styles and personality come into it. Some, may have perceived that those things are fixed and don't change, but everything is what I call it coachable or refinable, right down to virtually every human behavior. Even if it's not natural to you, there are things we can do to develop and coach people to use those effectively in their relationships, at work, really every facet of your life.
Professor Murphy, you're actually speaking my language here, talking about the soft skills involved, which I think I've developed in the almost 20-some years I've been in the work world, and then come to the MBA program to develop the hard skills. And I think it's still important that we emphasize, because everybody hasn't developed those soft skills. I do want to ask you about some of the things you do, because they all seem to tie in. You're executive consultant, you're a professor, you're working on your PhD, you're working in the career development office. Like, you do a number of things. And I wonder, is that because they all tie together in your passion? Do you like to just stay busy? Like, talk to us about taking on all those things that look like they're all going in the same direction.
Yeah, that's all true. And really, for me, this is just another phase of my career evolution. I call it sort of Ken Murphy 3.0, you might say. For me, it's having a strong background in the corporate world and having come up through the management ranks and the professional ranks in various leadership roles. The evolution of that was I took that out to the market in the form of a consulting business with partners and colleagues and others years ago, and did that for quite some time. And that was always, by the way, doing the same type of work, building high-performing organizations, developing highly effective leaders. Those are sort of the two themes in my career and in my life that go hand in hand. In this latest phase now that I'm at Pepperdine is that I came back to go to sort of the next level of knowledge in depth, sort of the research, the PhD part of all that. And maybe not coincidentally, and maybe by design, I also happen to have opened the door to some opportunities with Pepperdine to teach in the classroom. And so it's Ty, thanks for asking that. This is such a great blend sort of past, present, and future. And the future is really just continuing to do what I love to do, helping new and emerging professionals and leaders grow and develop, and then continue to work with organizations on the outside to do the same.
There's definitely a lot of wisdom that we can take from those traits, Professor. And, we're not going to teach people how to find their purpose in this short episode. But one thing I did think about was how you and I talked about me not being able to focus, let's say, on classroom topics that weren't to my liking or that I didn't think would be relevant to me. So I benefited a lot from your answer, so I wanted the rest of our audience to hear that. What advice can you offer to students who struggle to pay attention in classes that they just don't feel are interesting or relevant to them?
This is a big one now, Professor Murphy, because we're all trying to figure that out.
Well, a lot of pressure with that question. If we all could only know that, it's really not necessarily something I can do, but in the again, the mindset and the thought processes that students bring into the classroom, I kind of like to believe that students will look for at least something they can latch onto that's meaningful for them. Is there a reason you're there other than to get the 3 or 4 units of academic credit? And there's so many different ways to process the learning experience. So with that, as a professor, what I try to bring into that is engaging students in whatever works for them, which means I need to tune in to 20 people in the room individually as well as collectively. And so it's not a one size fits all. I think that's the nature of your question. Some are there because they have a passion for a particular topic, and others it's on the list of classes to graduate. So I would just say, try and find a reason, number one, or a nugget or some dimension of that subject. Also engage with others in the classroom. Why are they there? Get to know them. I mean, maybe part of the learning is seeing what others are learning, and there might be a spark of interest that transfers over to you from another student. What are they getting out of it? What are they focusing on in that particular subject? And even I would encourage and try to encourage people to challenge the process of what is being taught. Sometimes in the challenging of it, you can kind of dig into some dimension of the subject matter as well. And then sometimes you just have to roll with it and move on. And maybe that's not your cup of tea. And I'd say that's okay, because the totality of the educational or academic experience is what really makes or breaks your, the degree program you choose to be in.
That was excellent advice for us as students, but coming from the professor's perspective, all right, especially with most of our MBA so far has been virtual. When you see that students look like they may be tuning out, eyes glazing over, heads down in phones or whatever, like what is your adjustment process? Or do you adjust, or do you just keep teaching the information? Like, talk to us about your perspective on that same topic.
Well, it's a great question as well, Ty. That not at any given moment we're all going to tune out. I mean, as a professor, I really can't and shouldn't. And but when I see that from a student, maybe it's temporary. Maybe there's something's come up, or maybe they are just not engaged in whatever that is. So what I and a lot of professors do is kind of a standard learning experiences. We mix it up a lot. We have group activities. We have interactive multimedia presentations. I think gone are the days of just pure stand up in front of the room and lecture. I can't recall having ever done that to any length. I mean, there are times when you're quote unquote teaching a particular point or two, and so some of that's necessary to impart information. But beyond that, I think it's mixing up the learning modality even within the same 1 or 2 hour class, just to keep people on their toes. Do breakout groups, projects, presentations, teaching what we call flip the classroom. Have students teach a topic within the topic to others from the front of the room or the microphone. Kind of take over and mix it up.
That sounds good, and that's definitely how professors have been able to capture our attention. Some even use online interactive software like Kahoot, which lets you do a quiz style interactive thing that's low stakes and also a little more fun than your traditional.
Those tools are fantastic. And thanks, yeah, absolutely for raising that, because there are so many tools now that create an interactive experience, even in this virtual learning mode. So, the more you can appeal to different students' learning style and also staying on topic. If I see a number of students that tuning out, then I've got to shake it up and mix it up and maybe shift topics and go in a different direction too. So it's on all of us. It's kind of an overused term, a learning community, but I really enjoy that experience when I feel like we're all sharing information and interacting in real time with each other.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like a leadership quality, and it's on both ends, like you said. I'm wondering whether, you're a professor, whether you're a consultant, whatever hat you have on, part of your goal is to foster leaders in others. So I guess I'm curious, how do you define leadership, and what leadership traits are like learnable? What can you actually teach people?
Well, I know we don't have 2 or 3 hours to answer that, but it's a big question. What I can tell you, basically, I look at leadership, the way I define it is not so much out of a textbook or a dictionary, but it's about what do leaders do. And what leaders do, from my experience, having been one and worked with many, is a fairly straightforward set of things. I'll keep it short. Basically, they're setting vision, goals for a group of people, an organization, a business. Where are we going and why are we in this business? What are we trying to achieve? Ideally, they do that interactively and collaboratively. I mean, there are leaders who are charged with, and boards of directors that have to crisply define that. But after that, it's sort of like, how do we go about the business of running our business? And so they set plans, they rally people together around those plans, they make sure they've got the right talent on board to execute those business plans. And often we expect leaders to inspire others and be able to talk about bigger picture things. So where are we going and the why behind it, so that it's motivating and it's energizing. But the difficulty is you can't always be the source for motivation for others. So when you talk about what are the things that are difficult to do as a leader or to teach as a leader, I personally believe that individuals are intrinsically motivated to one degree or another. The leader's job is to bring out create that environment and bring out the conditions that will enable people to flourish and fulfill their own motivations about why they're there. In terms of the competency, by the way, we use that word a lot in leadership, the word competency. And I want to tie back, no pun intended, to what Ty said. Ty, I do love and hate the terms soft skills and hard skills. What I mean by love and hate is they're super commonly used. But I come from a behavioral or psychology background early in my days of education. And what I like to twist that a little bit and just say that although we absolutely commonly refer to these as soft skills and hard skills, I think all of them are just skills, even human skills, the interactive skills, and we can talk about some of them that are in that bucket of soft skills. Even those skills, you can break them down into tangible behaviors and pieces and then reconstruct them. You can teach and coach and articulate what's happening when those skills are in play. So I sort of am a believer in the art and the science of leadership, and the science of it is every skill, whether you put a label on hard or soft, are virtually all of them can be developed and coached and refined to be more effective at work.
It's interesting you say that. I am a big leadership person also, but I would like to, for the sake of the conversation, the sake of the audience, refine some of what you said. Are there, and I guess this is contextual, but are there specific skills that we should probably be leaving the MBA program with, right? That possibly, if you're younger or maybe a little older like myself, like that would probably benefit us in terms of going out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually fun and super interesting to dig into this, because we spend time talking about this. The 5 years I've been at Pepperdine at the business school, we absolutely talk about, besides what's going on in the classroom and the sort of the technical or subject matter knowledge, what else do we want our students to leave with? And what is, more importantly than that, what does the marketplace or the world want out of good leaders coming out of business school? And there's that fine line between traits and competencies, right? So I'll walk that line for a second. So a trait you might see a trait or as being something like your personality, your mindset, empathy, motivation, self-awareness, your style. Those definitely fall into that soft bucket, category that we so commonly refer to. But underneath that, there are things like having an optimism, having good judgment, going into the workplace with a feeling of I can inspire others by my behavior, by setting a good example. More concretely, just for a moment, the key skills today that we hear from industry, and I pay attention to this because it's the subject of my research. It's also how I keep relevant. After a career of 30 plus years, I've got to be contemporary. I've got to be relevant, or I'm out of business, right? I have no business teaching. I have no business consulting. And so some of those skills are collaboration is huge. So much of everything is being done in teams and groups. Adaptability, flexibility, global mindset, understanding that we're working in a world where work is widely distributed around the globe. A single organization, wherever it's based, will have multiple branches or manufacturing or service centers in other parts of the world. So we're a global economy. We have diverse workforces. So I've got to be really skilled and nuanced in terms of recognizing the needs of different people, especially those from cultures that are not our own culture, and how we blend those together. So negotiating skills, quantitative skills, strategic thinking. There's a handful of skills that are absolutely contemporary, necessary skills in the workplace. And by the way, one final twist on that point is that we know, or at least from my experience, I come immediately from the corporate world where I've run learning and development organizations in global companies. And I know what leaders are being taught once they get into the workplace. There are great investments in training and development for leaders in the workplace. And so the more congruency we have between what we do in business school and what they're doing in the workplace, I think the better we are at helping people get hired and launched and accelerate their careers as leaders.
Right. What's interesting is some of the things you said, well, we can definitely learn while we're in school, but some of them just come with experience, right?
Well, that's right. And what we want to do is produce graduates who are ready to hit the ground running. And once they're there in whatever work environment they choose, they can accelerate, and they're not necessarily learning everything brand new. I mean, there's certainly a natural learning curve for every job, every organization people walk into. But if we can help align what we're teaching and coaching and supporting in terms of development of the whole person, the whole leader, the whole business student that's graduating, I think it's more seamless when they hit the ground and they start being pulled into training and development programs inside a corporate environment, or when they start moving up the career ladder. I think it's all about being a good fit, but then being able to move and advance and grow and learn at a pace that works to meet people's individual goals.
Well, backtracking a little bit to some of the common traits that you found, you mentioned teamwork, and the first thing I noticed is how many group projects there were coming into our MBA program. Now, I've heard around that, you don't want to be working with the same classmates. Work with different classmates. That's going to help you get to know different types of people, and you'll push yourself to train your team building and teamwork skills. Now, there's also the flip side of in a job environment. Yes, you can change jobs and you start working with new people, and yes, you may have to adjust to new people, but you're going to be working usually in the same team. So maybe there's some value to working in the same team in your business school as well. So I wanted your take on that. What do you think?
Well, I focus on both, and actually, I allow or encourage students that form teams where they're working well together in the time frame of a semester, a term at school. I often don't worry too much about breaking teams up and moving people around a lot. I assume they're getting that in other classes, So it's not uncommon in some of my classes to let a team come together and work together for an entire semester. I've actually done that myself in my doctoral program, and some of my teammates that we stayed together for a good period of time are now business colleagues. We're writing and publishing academic papers together. But so I know people gravitate toward people for whatever reason, because they're different or because they're similar. It's not a one size fits all. So I'm comfortable sort of mixing and matching that as well. But I don't think there's a one right answer, but I know that it's common to just keep churning people. But there are times where I like to fix on a group and let that sustain for a while so people can mature and evolve as a team. Teams go through stages of development. They get together. We call it forming, storming, norming, and performing. And I like to see teams evolve to a high level of performance together, and it takes a little time. So I enjoy that process as well in class.
Well, I'm glad that you reminded us that you're a student as well, because I wanted you to talk a little bit with us about like a similarity that you see between your program and the MBA, and maybe a difference.
Well, sure. So I think, a similarity, of course, is I've been a lifelong learner. So I've gone through bachelor's, master's, and now the doctoral program. I think all students are either innately hungry for learning, or they are motivated by some other force and either want or need to go through that experience. But I think one of the common denominators is trying to figure out, how does this relate to me, what I'm learning and why I'm here, and what am I going to do with this? I found that constantly. It doesn't always have to be a one for one that I can take a new knowledge in and immediately understand how to apply it in my job or in life. But in the overall picture, I think we all think about, how can I use this? How will it help me, make me relevant? Or how will this help move me forward? So we're certainly here when we come into an academic environment intentionally to learn. We want to figure out, how do I use this and apply this? I think what's different, I know for me at the doctoral level, at least, the expectation is I'm either going to continue to do more research and certainly in-depth research, broad and deep, as well as most likely teach. Now, many of my colleagues and classmates, we all have a profession, an outside profession as well. So we're not necessarily all there to go into teaching or to be a researcher for the rest of our lives. But with that in mind, I do get paid to teach or share and impart, knowledge or create a learning environment. Now, here's what I find very interesting is at the MBA or the master's level, it's more of an implied understanding that as you go out into the world, you will, by osmosis or by intention, you will be sharing and experiencing every day in the workplace, wherever you go, your knowledge, your experience, your insights. And so that's just human nature to continue to share learning and engage in learning. It's just that sometimes at this in the level or what I'm doing, obviously I'm getting paid to go teach as well, or run classrooms and help create a learning environment. And even if I wasn't, if I'm out in the workplace, I think we're all, as humans, we're learning organisms, we're learning beings. And so we are constantly in a give and take. And I call it, by the way, discovery by discussion or through discussion. So in our everyday conversations like we're having today, we're learning, our audience is learning, and we'll take this out and just keep perpetuating the learning experience every day.
It's interesting, Professor Murphy, and I wonder about the challenges, right? We've done undergrad where I actually did a master's degree. Now I'm an MBA and, still face some of the challenges as a student, but as a PhD candidate, what are the challenges you face? Are they the same that we face, or is it just on a completely different read 15 chapters by tomorrow level? Or talk to us a little bit about that aspect.
Well, I love this quote I'm going to share with you, and it actually came from a student about 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about some people who were challenging why he's in graduate school, and he said, he told this person, if you invest in yourself, you'll never lose interest. And I love that sort of the play on words there with investing and interest and like an economic model. And so I think that's what we have, is investing in ourselves, but to do so with a purpose. And again, I think more and more it's coming full circle that people are being challenged in the workplace and through the academic world. What is your purpose? Why are you here? What's your purpose in life, and where are you going? And that's one of the hardest things to answer, Ty, is trying to get clear on that. So there's a lot of techniques that we use in the coaching side to help draw that out. There's a lot of self-assessment, evaluations people can take. There's just a lot of internal reflection that one can do on your own to try and come up with that, those answers. But once you're motivated and focused on a purpose, most everything follows. I think from that standpoint, for me, that drives my learning. That drives my connecting the dots to what am I going to do today that's going to advance me tomorrow in some way, small or large. Because with all the craziness going on around us, you can always come back down to self-reflection and contemplation about what are you going to do to make yourself better on any given day, and to take that out to the world to hopefully make the world a better place. I know it's a little corny, a little cliche, but I know for me, that's why I connect and resonate so well with Pepperdine, as we talk about this purpose, service, leadership. And at the Grazia Dio Business School, we talk about developing best for the world leaders. And that means something to me. That's right. That's why I get up every day and do this.
And that's, I guess, in terms of challenges, that's how you face it. This challenge is just one challenge on the way to me executing my purpose. So I don't see it as an obstacle that I can't overcome. I got it. That's excellent information.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, setting up basically a part 2 is what you're doing, Professor. So we'll have to reach out another time. But thanks for joining us, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Once again, you've been listening to our guest, Kenneth Murphy, professor, PhD candidate, and executive consultant. I'm Kia June.
And I'm Ty Brown.
And remember, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So expand your mind's horizons and explore a different dynamic. The Pepper Dynamics Podcast.